Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. And as you can see, Europe is kind of unified. And we pretty much see mainland Europe becoming a whole country here actually. So yeah, in today's video, we are looking at what if mainland Europe became a country. And we're just gonna start off with some areas that I missed. Like right here in the Azov Sea, which I'm pretty sure that one right there. But you might notice that Svalbard is not colored in. That is because anywhere outside of mainland Europe it becomes independent. So Svalbard is independent, French Guiana is independent. Any overseas territory of all these countries are now independent, unless it's in Europe. And Kaliningrad was also annexed, but why is it Russia? Well, this is because they're actually at war with Russia because of Ukraine. So they annexed the mainland one, but since most of Russia is Asia, it was not annexed, or their European parts, because they're at war. So yeah, we're going to have to look at what if that happens. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and go straight into the war. And starting off, Russia already has about, they have that little tiny area here in Ukraine. None of this though. But now, a new offenses will begin, and there's one big offensive. There's one up here in St. Petersburg with all of the Nordic countries, and as well as Finland, I guess, because I don't think they're Nordic. All of these guys, as well as like Lithuania and all of these guys over here, going towards St. Petersburg, with another large one being down here toward Ukraine. And even though all these guys are united, we're going to say they're fully united, there are no problems. And doing that, it's going to be a lot stronger. I would say it probably gets down to more like here, down there in the south. And up there, of course, they have this pretty big offensive. But Russia is, of course, the third strongest country in the world, I would say, at this point. China has definitely surpassed them. And the UK, France, Germany, all these guys combined are probably going to be number 4 or 5, I'm assuming. So they're probably right after, right before India. So number 4 now in this universe, with India becoming 5, and then so on. But that means that these guys are definitely going to be competitors for them. And they kind of got the jump on Russia, so they're definitely going to be able to make more moves faster. But once this wears off, I guess somewhere probably about here, it's going to eventually wear off. I mean, they weren't not fully prepared, but like right here on the Belarusian border, it's going to be way worse. I mean, because they were like allies. But down here, they're going to get their head out of the mud, and they're going to, I think that's the saying. But they're going to start fighting back and start taking Crimea back over, losing, I think that's Sevastopol at the very south. And they had this much land, with some Crimea still not under their control. But up north here, we actually see a very big pushback by the Russians in the Belarusian area, as well as the Baltics, but not really towards Finland. They're not really focused as much up there, since St. Petersburg is safe. And here's Moscow, and it's actually pretty close. I normally envision it like more of here. So yeah, they're definitely not going to have to go very far. And another topic is brought up when you go to who would have the capital city. Now, I think we're going to rule out all of Iberia, all of southern Athens, all of the Balkans, the Baltics. I think it would probably come down to these few countries right here. We have London, Paris, I forget Belgium's capital, Warsaw over here in Poland, and then Berlin. And honestly, I think it'd actually be Berlin. And the only reason that Belgium's capital was there is because because it's a very big diplomatic place for like the EU and NATO right now. But yeah, it's gonna end up being Germany, the Berlin, because they're kind of the center of the EU anyways, and that's probably what this is gonna be united under. But back to the war over here. Russia will be gaining all of Crimea back, as well as some other areas around Crimea, in the Donbass region. And the other region there that's also included, that I don't know. Kyiv will be kind of solidified into the country here, though. And this is just such a big country, so they're probably some of these eastern countries, or their troops are starting to get there, since this kind of happened immediately. As soon as they united, they declared war. So they weren't fully ready. But now that that's happening, they're going to be focusing up on the northern front line here, as well as sending a lot of aid to Ukraine. But it's going to get like this, and yeah, I think Russia will be fully losing. But this, of course, leads to losing some of Ukraine for these guys. So yeah, Russia is still losing. But it gets even worse when a massive party from the Benelux, Germany, the UK, and France are actually moving up through Finland, reaching out to this lake over here, and actually going all around it and cutting off the whatever this place is up here. I believe I referred to it once as I don't know. It's the Kola Peninsula. Yes, the Kola Peninsula. That's what it is. Boom. But yeah, so the Kola Peninsula is cut off, and that doesn't really make Russia very happy. So they're now going to move a lot of their troops from down here, like up onto other front lines up here. So they're shifting all of their front lines north a little bit. So these ones are going to change a little bit up. These ones are definitely they're going to lose a lot of land here. But in return for this, they do push back this area right here, taking back that lake. And then up here, they're going to move some troops through here, taking over some different lands. And this land doesn't really mean anything. It's very worthless. It's just the idea that Europe has this much land. But anyway, they're going to keep fighting, and eventually Russia will take it all back. Besides for the little channel right here, kind of area between these two, as well as several marshes between Finland. But like I said, these guys are just so strong. And then something happens that'll blow the top off for Russia. We'll be joining the war on the side of the EU. This is going to help the European Union a lot here. But it's not exactly the European Union, because I've already done a video on that, and that get kind of boring. But yeah, I just decided to do another video on it because I thought it was an interesting topic of all of Europe and how that would change the scenario. So we're doing that now. I know it might be a little repetitive since I haven't had much content of normal mapping on my channel, but it's whatever. But eventually, the Chinese are going to take like all the land over here. There is a major city, I think it's called who knows what, I couldn't tell you, but it's taken. All their military assets were moved, and eventually all these islands out here are going to be taken by the Chinese. Oh shoot. Okay. But yeah, all the islands will be taken, and eventually Russia realizes they really can't win this war now that China's joined. I would have them spreading out from this area, but it's gigantic mountains. They're not going to be doing that. I am going to follow geography. And they're going to go up this area right here and eventually take over all this island right here. I knew the name of it at one point, but I don't anymore, so yeah. When it gets to a point like this, where Russia is going to be drawing a little bit of forces back over there, but not too much because they're focused over here now. But eventually, they're almost completely thrown out of Ukraine. Besides for the little piece down here in Crimea and this little piece in the Donbass. And yeah, it just gets worse and worse for them as this lake is captured again. There's really no point in doing that, but eventually St. Petersburg is cut off, and this is when it starts getting down to St. Petersburg, they're going to agree to surrender after it's captured. This is what China gets, and they get this little area right here, This little area up here is a callback to the Japan borders, as well as these little islands over here that Japan claims. So this is kind of all a big welcoming committee to Japan, because now they're kind of surrounded, and they're also kind of scared, as anybody should be, because China is now second. And yeah, at this point, Europe is probably going to be third now, because of how much power they got from this. Well, now we gotta see their side of the peace treaty. And here is Europe's borders now. Starting off up here in the north, there's two new province countries. There is the Kola Peninsula, which is the northern, which is everything up there, with like, yeah, probably everything up here, which is the new like province of the European Union. And then there's the St. Petersburg province, which is right here. But then down here, Belarus gets a little piece of land. And then down here, Ukraine will also get a little piece of land. This completes the borders. And overall, it is the same country. It's just their provinces get a little piece of land. I guess that's completely new provinces, but their local government gets more land. So now Europe looks like this, and they're already way bigger. But China is not irrelevant. We don't care about them anymore. We're probably not going to see them for the rest of the video, so say goodbye to them. Russia probably too. So boom. Yeah, it looks a lot different. But now back over to Europe. But Switzerland is kind of mad about this, but they're gonna have to stay in the Union anyways. But after this, they will actually be attacking Turkey because of they say that they went into Istanbul, which was taken over. Istanbul is like right here. And that they marched troops into Istanbul. And that's what they say happened. So they're technically just defending their country. So they will go in, they'll take it back, but they'll start moving in to the rest of this area right here, and taking over all the Azovs. This is not Azov. This is Azov, I think. Yeah, I don't know what this is then. I think I said it was Azov earlier. It's not. But yeah, we're gonna go down. I also remember, I think somebody also said that the Aral Sea over here was the Azov Sea, or like this sea over here, which is not right at all. But anyway, back over to here. Yeah, Europe just keeps taking like all the coast over here. It's not even competition. Technically, Turkey would be like probably 6th or something, because Europe is all united now. So we have USA, China, EU, Russia, India, and there's probably a big gap, and that's probably Turkey and like Brazil, and then like Australia or something. So yeah, you guys are probably like top 6, but when it comes to Europe, it's not really a question. They're gonna fight, and they will. And this takes several months, maybe years, to even get this far. Probably about a year to get this far. But eventually, they will both agree to peace, where we can see the peace treaty. We can see the new borders, where Europe takes over all this area right here. And then, yeah, Turkey's just left alone. So they are significantly weaker, but at least they're not dead. But that means that Europe has a lot of Mediterranean land. So, next, they're going to go after Tunisia. And this is where a lot of countries start to notice that these guys are definitely expansionist. As they go after them, they take Tunis right away. Right around, yeah, here. Tunis is gone, and then boom, they just annex the whole country, actually. which is crazy. We've never seen them do that before. So after this happens, a whole coalition will be formed against them, but they're not going to be going to war. It is created between Russia, Turkey, and Algeria, because Algeria is kind of fearing for themselves right now. They border them to the north, basically the Mediterranean, and then Tunisia. So that's a lot. They can't really do anything without the Europeans knowing. They've kind of like trapped them here and sea access. Same thing for like Russia. Their only access is up north, and then Black Sea, and then same with Turkey, Black Sea, and then the Mediterranean Sea. Technically, they go through the Suez Canal though, so that's like they're safe. That's like how they're safe. But after this, Europe will just annex Svalbard, saying it wasn't doing good independent. Same thing with Greenland. They will annex them. And now they're really big now. But that's really all they're going to do. Everywhere else is kind of way too far away to control. But after this happens, we of course see more backlash. As now Morocco is going to join, just to save themselves, not for anybody else. But eventually we see more people join, like Iran, Pakistan, who are Russian aligned. Middle East really isn't going to do anything about this. But up here, Azerbaijan, because they're an ally of Turkey, is going to join. And then these two right here are kind of just... They're more European aligned, and they're actually going to become allies of the European Union. Because they don't like the purple team right now. Same thing with Cyprus. They're going to become Western aligned, and eventually they will just be fully annexed. Because, yeah, there is the Greek part, and then there's actually the British part. So they have no real reason to not be part of the EU. But then, yeah, it looks something like this, and the matchup is surprisingly even. With Pakistan is of course up there in the top 10 now, as well as Turkey. And with Russia up there too, who is probably number 4 at this point, probably 5, right below India. So we have 5, 6, and probably 7. Yeah, so that's the 3 of the strongest powers versus the top 3. So they would probably definitely be an even match, including the Iran, Azerbaijan, Algeria, and Morocco. So they won't be messing with each other yet. And in fact, Europe is kind of running out of places to go. They only have Africa and the Middle East. So they'll do a series of campaigns to take over Lebanon, or at least they're going to become aligned with them, as well as Jordan, who they set up with a fake government in, and Saudi Arabia actually being surprisingly the biggest, having all aligned governments with the EU, which leads to a lot more stuff happening, like Yemen becoming purple, and we're not even going to touch Israel. You know what? They're sunk. I think we're tired of these guys and mapping scenarios. They always complicate things. And there we go. We'll get rid of that capital too. And you know what? While we're at it, boom, there's a new, bigger Suez Canal right through here. So now Egypt is Africa is fully separate from everywhere else. And I guess the Sinai Peninsula is now not a peninsula anymore. They are an island because of the Suez Canal. So yeah. But anyway, back up here. The EU, they're actually not going to end up attacking because they're going through a civil war. Looking at this, we have the British Isles one, as well as Iceland and Greenland. And then we have the insanely strong, I think this is the Nordics, I guess. I don't know if Finland is included in there, but eventually these two end up joining the Nordic side. So, yeah, the Nordics is definitely the strongest. We have Iberia, and then we have the Balkans, and there's so many different sides in the Balkans. To draw it accurately, there's probably like a, I don't know, like a side here, like Serbian area, and then we have like the real Croatians. Like, it's just gonna be, it would just be a mess. Like, we have the Slovenians, and then we have, I can go on with this forever, basically, is what I'm saying. So we got like the real Serbia, or what, or whatnot, the real Serbia. You know, there's so many sides that it doesn't even really matter. They're all just one right now, temporarily. And then eventually, there will be another side, being Italy, as well as Tunisia. And then the whole thing kind of collapses. First off, the British Isles are going to get their independence, all united, and so is Iberia. And now, the reason why these countries can survive together is because first, they've been united for so long that the groups kind of merged. There are still tons of separate entities and groups in here, but they're slowly starting to merge together. Instead of being like 100, there's more like 50, and most of them being down here, or in Eastern Europe. But what I'm saying is, there's about half as many ethnic groups as there used to be, which makes it way easier for all these countries to unite. So eventually, the European Union will, of course, let go of Iberia and of the British Isles. But up here, yeah, the Nordics are still very strong. They're like the main focus here. The Italians are also here, but the French area right here is going to kind of leave, and over here too. They're going to leave and go away. So which leaves the Italian area, as well as like Tunisia. But Tunisia, at this point, was just going to get their independence again. There's no point in keeping that for the Italians. They have no interest in them. Even though it would look pretty cool, and they technically could hold on to them, they're just not. But the Baltics are, of course, going to be fractured. So much so that the Europeans can just push them back fairly easily, as well as... And eventually we'll get the access to the Adriatic once again. And I guess up down here where there's just this Greece thing, which is all pretty much their own thing. So their borders will pretty much just become this. And after the Greeks' independence, are they called the Grecos? I don't know. I've heard that term before. I don't know who it's used by. But the Italians are going to start moving in. We're going to have like a shader on. It's not like their main revolutionary area. But they will move into some of these other areas, conquering some more of these French areas that they once had under their control. That was kind of give them back over to the French. But the German area, this is kind of more like a Reich now, kind of a German Reich. And it kind of always was, besides under a new revolutionary thing. But basically that's just going to leave to more groups wanting their independence, such as the Ukrainians over here, who look something like this. Close enough. And then there's, of course, all these other groups. But the Ukrainian group is going to move out into some of these southern areas here, and they're not that strong. No, they're gone pretty much immediately, and forced back into some of these Bulgarian and Romanian and Moldovan lands. After this happens, the Germans, I guess, at this point, they're going to move up into Copenhagen, and they're almost going to capture the whole city. Somewhere on this island. I have no clue where. It's on the eastern half, like over here. So they won't capture it yet, but they'll get close. Same thing over here. They capture all of Kaliningrad, and they start moving their way up into the Baltics, where they reach over here, and they move into St. Petersburg area. Relatively easy. So we end up with something like this for the borders so far. But yeah, these guys just have too much support, and they end up failing and moving into like the German land, and eventually it has to become the Baltics, because this group just is not only the Norwegians and the Swedish and the Finnish and the Estonians and Latvians and St. Petersburgians and the Colons, or the, I don't know if that's the right term. I don't know if most of those. Anyway, Europe here is united against one common enemy, and eventually France will develop this idea, and then eventually down here we'll develop this idea. And some groups are gonna get invaded by these guys and these guys before they can get there. Overall, the main idea is that unity across Europe should not happen under the Germans. But really, unity across Europe is very hard to do. The first part of the peace treaty, starting off, we have the Italian area down here. It has all this land with this much given back. Well, there's these islands right here. So, first of all, these right here. We're going back to them. But yeah, even the fringe area right here of Corsica is not given to them, actually. So that's wrong. But yeah, they look like this. So, pretty different, actually, from the old border. But, oh man, this looks terrible. Okay, so I fixed it. What I was saying was, the borders look a lot different. They even go up to Switzerland. But yeah, so that's it for them. We can mark them out. Then we go over here to, I guess we'll give these guys their own color. This is Moldova, Romania. They're out of here. Then we have Ukraine, which is all this. Oh, I forgot to draw this border out right. But yeah, so we have Ukraine, and then we have all of Norwegia up here for the top. So now we can actually mark this back to its rifle color, which is yeah. So Norwegia's up here, or I guess I called it not Norwegia because that's Norway, and it's not just Norway. I called it Baltia because of the Baltic Sea. It's named after the Baltic Sea. But yeah, it has all Denmark and a little bit extra. All these areas basically, plus Greenland. But now we can actually get these guys out of here. Meaning, the first part of the peace treaty is done, but they force Germany to spit out at least 5 pieces of themselves, 5 independent countries, and they basically have to make it to where they're a third of their size now. That's like their law. Or I think it's probably even a fourth of their size, their current size, which is actually very big. So that happens at this point. Georgia and Azerbaijan, technically, the alliance is still here, but yeah, these governments here, they're renewed, and the alliance between Armenia and Azerbaijan still stands. But a lot of these countries, like Morocco, Algeria, Yemen, are going to leave. Turkey and Azerbaijan are going to leave, which leaves this kind of Russian alliance. So basically the whole alliance is disbanded, but some of these guys are going to stay lasting, or they're going to have an lasting alliance. But yeah, that pretty settles it for the alliances. The last thing we have to get to is, of course, splitting up Germany. This is how Germany divides up their land, and it's looking more like 33. They have 33% for the land they have to split up. But they're going to allow it because it's still not like the whole territory. So first down here we have, I guess the Austro-Hungarian, new Austro-Hungarian Empire. So that's there. Then we have Poland, or I guess this is more like Kaliningrad, not really Poland, but I guess it would be Old Poland / New Belarus. And then we have France with their Corsica, and then they have like Belgium and some other lands, and then we have the main German area. So now that that whole scheme was put out of the way, there's a lot less countries in Europe, and it's looking a lot more unified when you look at it, just like zooming out. But yeah, so there we go. So if you enjoyed today's video, yeah, show your support. European Union is dead. So if you enjoyed today's video, yep, show your support, comment, like, subscribe. We're going to try to reach 250 subscribers. It's our next main goal, 250. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.